Good evening. I am your host, Dr. Sundiata Kaita Chajua, and this is Real Talk, History as a Weapon for Black Liberation. Today's guest is Jackie Lugman. You all know her from Lugman Nation and from Darker Than Blue. She is a journalist and activist. She is an organizer, Pan-Africanist, anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist revolutionary. She is the Midwest regional organizer for the Black Alliance for Peace and is also an organizer with the Pan-African Community Action. Jacqueline is moderator and serves on the board of social action of the Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ in Washington, D.C. Additionally, as I said, she co-founded with her late husband, Ellis, Lugman Nation, and she now also hosts Darker Than Blue, one of my favorite songs by one of my favorite artists, Curtis Mayfield. Now, her articles can be found at Black Agenda Report, Hood Communist, and Real News Network, for a few. She is also the author of a new book recently come out, We Need John Brown Christians. It's a hell of a title. And it also speaks to something we do need. We need some John Browns. And she is co-editor of a book that came out last year entitled China Changes Everything, an anthology by social justice activists, journalists, and commentators. Sister Jackie, it is wonderful, 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 wonderful to have you on my show again.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be on again. It's been quite a difficult time trying to get back here. This schedule has been kind of crazy.
Well, I know you were out of town, out of town, out of the country.
I was way out of town.
Way out of town. We're gonna get to that trip in a few, but so I'm welcoming you back, and I want to say, we try and be informal, so it's brother and sister, comrade, and those kinds of things. And just let me say again how much I appreciate your work, your scholarship, your leadership. I just deeply appreciate what you're doing. So we'll have more of a conversation, and you know how I am. I interrupt. I do all those things as a people. I'm not trying to be different from my people.
Right.
So, Bill Cross was a big friend of mine and big influence. And so part of what I try and do in the beginning of every show is to get at who are you, right? You know, the questions that old Black folks always ask: what's your people? Where are you from? What's your church home? So that's what we try and do. So you've been here before, but the audience is different. It's been 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Boy, time moves.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So you were born in Jarrett, a very small town, rural town in Virginia. And much of African American historiography focuses, ironically, the contradiction, right? For most of our history, we've been a rural people. It's only been since 1940 that you could say that a near majority or a majority of us lived in urban space. Right? But ironically, probably 95, 98% of African American history is written on urban places.
Yeah.
Tells us something about the petty bourgeoisie.
Very much. Yes.
So, you grew up in a small town, but you're also a very worldly, cosmopolitan woman who has traveled widely internationally. As I said, you just got back
Yeah.
to
Yep.
the
Yep.
empire.
Yeah.
Me.
And didn't
So
want to come back.
I know you didn't. I know you didn't. With this current fool. Um, so tell me what it was like. Talk to the audience about what it was like in the late 20th century and early 21st century to grow up in a small rural town in which Black folks were a minority. And
Well,
while you do, before you do that, I want you to, well, do that. Do that.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't grow up in my hometown. I lived there until I was 4 or 5, and then my mom moved us up here to Washington D.C. And I spent summers
Uh,
in my hometown when I was a little kid. And I did I think maybe 1 year, like a year of elementary school and a year of middle school.
okay.
So I didn't so my experience growing up in my hometown was limited to that period of time. But I did notice that there was a clear separation between white people and black people outside of um, uh, places where white people and black people would be at the same time, like school.
Right, right, right.
By the time I was in school, like school, but that wasn't always the case. And I did not know until I was probably in my early 20s that my mother actually integrated her high school in that town.
That's
So the reason the schools were no longer segregated when by the time I went to school was because my mother
but
desegregated
the rest of
the high.
social life.
Yeah,
The
just
only
so.
interaction with white folks is in commercial interactions. So it's schooling,
Hmm.
it's labor. They're
Hmm.
the employer, we're the worker.
Yep.
They are the landlord, we are
Yep.
the renter.
That's it.
Those
That.
kinds of
Hmm.
capitalist relations. But now, so
Yeah.
this gives us another angle, though, in the sense that you spent enough time in a very small rural place, but you were also living in a city.
Hmm.
So when you say that it was very separate in Jarrett,
Hmm.
are you indicating that it was different?
It was exactly the same.
Oh, okay.
It was
That's what
exactly
I'm trying to
the
get
same.
at.
It was, and I think that was something that I noticed, I began to notice when by the time I got to high school here. Um and because I remember saying to my mom, because my mom, kind of asked me, "Oh, how do you feel about going to school down the country?" Because that's what we call it.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
right.
how do you feel about going to school down the country? Because see, the crack epidemic was breaking here
Mm,
in the north, in the city. And my mother and my aunt were terrified, terrified. My aunt had a son, my first cousin, who he and I are basically brother and sister. He's 7 years younger than me. She's terrified for him. She didn't. He was a toddler, but she was like, I am taking him home back to
yeah.
Jarrett to go to school. And my mom did not want me to go to high school here, but I didn't want to go to high school in our hometown because it was it was a town. It was where the white people just ran stuff. But then I come to DC, and I'm in school, and I notice that, oh, the only white people who are in our schools, because I lived in Southeast
Mhm.
DC, all completely, pretty much, all 99.8% black. So all of my teachers were black, with the exception of a few white teachers that I can remember. I can literally remember the number of white teachers I had.
Wow.
And I went to school here in Washington, D.C. I went to Ballou Senior High School. And I went to Malcolm X elementary school. So not far from. So everybody knows that these were, largely black schools that had largely black staffs.
Mhm,
But
mhm.
I did notice that the only white students who were in the schools here were the white kids from Bowling Air Force Base, because Bowling Air Force Base didn't have a high school at the time. So some of the high school students while they were, I think, building the high school or something, that some of the high school students
Mhm.
ended up going to Ballou, because Ballou was the closest high school to Bowling Air Force Base. So then, and then I think the thing that really crystallized the difference, the racial difference, not just the separateness, like the
Mhm.
physical separateness of Black and white people, because even in my hometown, that was normal.
Yeah.
Right? That wasn't anything that was weird to me, because unless you went to town or went to school or went to work, and I wasn't going to work because I was a child, that was the only time you saw white people.
Well,
So
you know,
we grew up around us. And so our grandparents and parents, I think they did, at least my family did, a a really, I think it was a concerted effort to shield me from that, the reality of the
yeah,
hatred.
yeah, I'm sure.
But I did grow up hearing, hushed whispers, because the adults never told, talked about all the adult business around the children. But I grew up hearing whispers about, an uncle being accused of something, and my grandmother, saying, no, he doesn't need to go back and work at that store with that man, because that man's son did it, and he's not going to call the police on his son. He's going to lock up my child, that kind of stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
But I hear it outside of any kind of context, so I don't know what it means as a child until I get older and I'm in high
Right.
school and I
So was there
start.
an incident or you just were reflecting on the past?
Yeah, I was just reflecting on things that I randomly heard my family talk about. That, when the kids walked in the room, it was like, oh, shh,
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah,
don't
yeah.
you,
It's
shh,
always been
don't
that
you,
way. Yeah, yeah.
and
This is
so I'm
typical.
learning about history, because I become fascinated with history, and so I'm learning about history, and I learned about slavery in middle school in the South, but when I learn about slavery in the North, the lesson is literally different in the
So
textbook.
what, the North,
Yeah,
we're in the North.
well, in DC, but
Well, they say
still.
it's the North.
Well, look, technically it's below the Mason-Dixon line, but the culture is entirely
The
different.
culture is Northern or is it just urban?
The culture is both northern and urban.
Okay.
Yeah, it is both
Because of the
northern.
people who come to work there.
Yes, yeah, because of the people who migrated here, who did not want to um um transport that kind of southern culture here, but the city was also always under the control of the federal government that
Yeah,
never allowed black leadership. So
right,
the
right.
political culture of DC was, yeah,
So,
absolutely racist, and
okay,
yes,
yeah.
but the social culture that I grew up in was very, very black focused, very empowering of black people,
Mhm.
very protective of black people, particularly black children. Like that was a feeling that, as a little black kid, as a little dark girl, I could go anywhere in this city,
Yeah,
and I knew that I would be cared for. That was never a question, right?
yeah.
Until,
The crack epidemic.
yes.
Yeah.
And then I began to learn about the ways white people view black people, like
Mhm.
writ large. And I'm not talking about, accusing all white people of
Oh,
being
oh, yeah,
racist. I'm
oh,
talking
yeah,
about as a social kind of idea, the idea of black people among white people's understanding of. But that's when I kind of realized, oh wait, that it's not just that we live in different places, right? It's not just that we don't live in the same neighborhood for whatever reason I couldn't even figure out then. It's that, oh, they really hate us.
See,
Oh.
see, Jackie, if I could say this, my experience is different, right? Well, one, I'm in another generation, older
Mhm,
generation than you,
mhm,
but I went to school with white kids all the time.
mhm,
Illinois schools were integrated in 1874, but we were simply in the same classrooms and in the same spaces, right?
mhm.
the only white kids I can ever remember talking to, right, were the guys that were on the football team or the basketball team or the track team. And it was only during practice and maybe an occasional night.
Uh-huh.
We did not, the classrooms weren't quote unquote apartheid, but we did not interact,
Mm-hmm.
even though we were in the same spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And so thus, I can't remember but three of my teachers, and all I had was white teachers. I can only
Mm.
remember three of them, and one of them definitely with a desire, a fondness, a gladness that he's no longer with us on the planet.
That was the most diplomatic way I have ever heard anybody say, "I'm glad that Bama dead."
So,
I
so,
appreciate that. Imma use that. I need that in my life.
so we understand. So you had this kind of a contradictory location in
Yeah,
terms of space, right?
yeah.
Small rural town, white majority, big city, black majority.
Mhm.
But you also, in terms of family background, as I understand it, there's a Marxist sociologist, Eric Olin Wright, and he has this concept that he calls contradictory class location.
Yeah.
What he's trying to get at is that sometimes, well, I put it into the context of us as a people. Often you had a black woman who was a school teacher,
Mhm.
had had an office job, and she was married to a man who was putting in those 60 hours in the factory, right? Got to
Mhm.
get that overtime in order to support your family because you don't make enough to do it
Oh,
on 40, right? So
mhm.
you got to put in 50.
Right.
Okay. Um, and so so you grow up in homes that has a mixed class background, right? And so you definitely your background fit that framework of contradictory class location. That there's a part of you. I think your father comes from a more middle class background.
No.
No,
Nope.
your mother. What?
Nope.
Oh, what?
Nope.
Did I read this wrong?
No, both my parents were well, my father's family had a little money.
Okay, that's what they were landowners.
Yeah. Well, technically, well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. In
Okay.
the South,
Okay.
being a landowner is not the class demarcation all the time
Okay.
because land ownership in the South among us not all that unusual. Not as unusual among older generations. For I mean, for obvious
Mhm,
reasons.
mhm.
So land ownership in and of itself is not necessarily like the class demarcation. If a family was able to um, open a successful business and make money that way, or just take the money they made from that 50, 60, 70 hour work low paying factory job and do something else on a hustle and make money that way, then that's how people moved it. But
Yeah,
just being
there's a
a
lot of that.
landowner, yeah. But my grandfather, my
So there's
father's father.
subsistence farmers. So you're not talking about they're not producing enough to really
Right,
market and change
right.
living
Yes,
circumstances.
right.
Okay.
Like everybody in my family on both sides of my family owns land. But my father's father was a brick mason, which for the time that my father's father came up, that was an enormous deal for a black man to
Oh
be.
yeah, because that's an artisan job. They get paid and they're
That's right,
independent contractors.
right. So the story is, and I'm not sure how much of this history is true. The story is that my grandfather, well, I know he built his house, the house that is still in our family on my father's side of the family. We still have the house. He built that house with his own hands. And because he was a brick mason, he made enough money so he was able to buy some more land. So that is how, and then he opened a store and
Okay.
then he made money that way. And then, his wife cooked dinners or something or other like that on the side.
So
So they had
catering.
a little bit of money.
That's what's created the catering industry.
Right, right. So they had a little bit of money. In I guess according to the economic standards of black people, they were
Right.
middle class. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
certainly had more money than my mama's family.
Okay.
And the scandal was that my father was even in a relationship with my mother because she was dark skinned and because she was poor.
Okay. See, so I was getting at a
Yes, you
contradictory
yes,
justification.
yes,
We just had to.
yes. Just had to get down the right road to
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So can you speak to your politicalization? And I want you to do it into. I know your mother played a phenomenal role, but I also know that you have a unique experience. Normally we dry long so we all ordinary everyday black folk,
Uh-huh.
except for them
Yeah.
bourgeois Negroes, right? We just leave them over there. But you were politicized in the punk movement.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
I want you to first talk about the role of your mother, and
Mm-hmm.
then we want to come back and really unpack this punk thing because I doubt that very many black folk know that the punk music piece was part of a political subculture. I'd
Mm-hmm.
say that at its core was anarchistic, but it's
Yeah.
anti-capitalist,
Mm-hmm.
it's direct action. So anyway, we'll come back to that. But first,
Oh
talk
yeah.
about your mother.
My mom, Mamie Corrine Malone, or her maiden name, Mamie Corrine Jefferson, integrated her high school, not because she wanted to go to school, and she literally told me so. What I'm about to say is not my opinion. This is literally what my mama told me when I finally got her to tell me about this history of hers. And she didn't even tell me all of it because she was traumatized so deeply
Mm,
by what was done. I mean, my mom died in 1996 and she never told me the whole story of what happened to her, what was done. I got this history pieced together between my grandmother and my father, and my uncles. But my mom, when I asked her what compelled her to integrate her high school, she said, I did not care about going to school with white kids. I didn't care. I liked our teachers just fine. And I like to read, so whatever material I wanted to find any more information about, I just got the books. I got one of my white girlfriends to go to the library and get the book that I wanted. So her thing was, I was not interested in going to school with the white kids. She said what I did know was that even though our teachers cared for us more than I knew the white teachers would ever care for us,
mhm,
I
mhm.
also knew that those teachers and those school staff were never going to be given the materials and the resources that we deserved
That's right.
to have the kind of education that they wanted us to have. She said, I knew that no matter how excellent those teachers were and no matter how excellent of students we were, the people in power were never going to treat us equally the way they treated the white schools.
That's right.
And that is how she explained it. And then she said, and quite honestly, your father and I were dating. We weren't even talking about getting married then, but I just knew that this is wrong. And if I ever have children, I do not want my children to have to grow up in this.
You
That's
know,
why she did it.
that is a wonderful story, but I want to further unpack some of the details because in my interaction with students, the prevailing notion is that what we continue, even us radicals act like we fucking liberals and we talk about segregation as opposed to apartheid. Part
Hmm.
of being a radical is that you have to pull this shit up from the root.
Hmm.
You have to change the language.
Hmm.
Because in changing the language, you're changing the theoretical conception by which we analyze the situation, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
anyway, the point that I want to get at is that a lot of people today, when they think of that term segregation, they're thinking about water fountains, right? And they're thinking about sitting in the balcony at movie theaters.
Hmm.
They don't get to the more damaging structural elements.
Hmm.
So your mother, as a high school student, didn't have access to the library. She had to connive and get some white friends to go to the library for her.
Mhm.
Don't realize we didn't have access to the
That's
libraries
right.
till the
That's
60s.
right. Mhm.
You
Mhm.
couldn't go in. Even in my lifetime, when we went shopping, the prevailing thought was, my mother was going to give me a hat, and she said, "Try the hat." And the guy, the salesperson, said, "If you put it on, you bought it,
That's right. Yep.
whether it fit or not."
That's right. That's right.
That
Yeah.
was their view.
That was it. And my mom did tell me, and my dad also told me about going shopping when they were younger, when they were kids, and they measured their feet. Their parents measured their feet
Yep, yep,
by using a cutout. You know, the
yes,
thing you couldn't try the shoes on, you couldn't try the clothes on. You
no,
had to have your measurements
yes, you
with you
did,
because
yes,
you
you
could
did.
not try
Yeah,
the
I know
clothes on.
about getting your foot.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, putting their foot up against the sole of the shoe
yeah,
to see if it yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So now tell us about how your mother politicized you, though.
You know, she didn't. Not
What
like
did
not
she?
like intentionally. It's not my mom never sat me down and said, Look, this country is unjust, it is unequal, this is racism, this is
Mhm.
that." She did not do that. My mother did not do that.
So
My
how did she
mom
do it, though?
huh?
How did she do it? Because in past conversations and stuff I read, she certainly put you on
Mhm.
the path.
Yes, she did. And she I guess the older I've gotten, the more I realize this was just her way. My mother figured out how to get me to learn things cuz I'm really stubborn. I just I'm if you tell me something, I'm not going to believe it just cuz you told me. I don't care. I've always been that way.
Yeah.
I just because I said so has never worked with me. So so my mama had to figure out how to get me to do what I was supposed to do because I believed it, because I thought it was a good idea, right? Like
Mhm.
I have always been that kind of kid and it drove her nuts. But she had to figure out if I want this child to learn anything, I've got to convince her that this is a good idea. She's got to go along with it. So my mom would encourage me to do things. You know, she would take me to museums. She would take me to fancy restaurants, right? My mother was the first person to take me to a French restaurant,
Okay.
you know, and she sacrificed herself and ordered some escargot just so we could both go, God, this is disgusting, to get and have the conversation about why the hell do French people eat snails? Whose
Yeah.
idea was this? Where did that's the way my mom figured out I become interested in things, and that is how I want to learn things. So when big events would be happening, like if there would be a big exhibit in one of the museums, my mom would take me. She would make sure she would either take me or give me the bus fare and tell me, go on to the Hirshhorn. You know, they're having a big display. Go take a look and come back and tell me what you saw, you know, or we would watch television shows, but not always movies, but if there was a documentary or if there was like I remember we watched the moon landing. That was a big deal. We watched the movie. I was a little teeny kid, and she's trying to explain to me all this stuff, and then I didn't get it then, but later I think PBS showed it again a few years later, and we sat down and watched the moon landing rebroadcast together. And she's explaining to me, when you were younger, we were watching this, and you asked me this, that, and I explained this, that, and the third. So this is how my mom got me to be curious about my surroundings. It's how she got me to ask questions and to not be afraid to ask questions about everything I saw that didn't make sense.
Beautiful.
But she also created a monster because I wouldn't shut up.
But that has served you well.
And at about 10 or 12, finally she was just like, if you ask me one more question, I swear to God, you can read. And you need to go read and stop asking me all these questions. So that is how my mom kind of politicized me without intentionally doing it, without telling me what to
Mhm.
believe. She wanted My mom taught me how to be curious and how to ask questions. And that is how she got me to be curious. And then the next thing I know, I'm
Really?
sitting down with her watching television shows like Petey Green's Washington,
Mm.
like the McNeil Lehrer News Hour, sitting down with her watching C-SPAN when it came on
Yeah.
because I was
Yeah.
curious and I was asking questions. And that's how she did it. That's what started it. And when I got older, that became our Friday night. That was our bonding. That was one of the ways we developed an adult relationship, me and my mom. Friday nights, we would hang out and we would watch Petey Green's Washington. My aunt and uncle would come over and we would hang out and talk and eat and discuss what we were watching. And then I would make her watch Headbangers Ball, and then I would go home. So
It's your mother was true, and she had a real good sense of pedagogy on how to develop a critical mind.
mm,
And she
yeah,
did an excellent job,
she
obviously.
did. And quite honestly, my mom did my mom created in me a part of her because my mother was incredibly curious. My mother
Mhm.
would go to the thrift store. We would go to the thrift store once a month, and she would always go to the book section. And she would just leaf through the books and pick out books that interested her about everything and anything. My
Mm.
mother had books on the occult. She had books on transcendental meditation. She
Oh,
had books on Buddhism. She had books on Confucianism. My mother had a book on Juche, and I didn't know what Juche was.
oh,
And then when
wait,
I
that's Kill
found
Me
out
a
what
Song.
Juche was, I was like,
Yeah.
where is that
Oh,
book?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Socialism with Korean
Yes,
characteristics. You
yes.
did right. Kill Me a
She
Song.
had yes,
Yeah,
she had
yeah.
books on human anatomy. She had medical books. She had a copy of the DSMV 2 and 4.
What?
Yeah, all from the thrift store. All from the thrift store
That's
because
even
she
smarter.
she saw something. And I remember her doing this so often. I was a little kid, so I'm like, "Can we please leave?" You know, I got what I wanted. Can we please leave? But she's standing in the books going, I've never heard of this. I wonder what this is about. I'm going to get this. That's literally what she would do. I've never seen this before. What is this about? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to find out. That's how she was. And she was that way because when she was little, my mother was the oldest child. She was the favorite until all the other kids came along. And then she became the one who had to take care of all the other
Yeah.
kids.
Oh,
So
yeah.
her childhood was truncated and
Yeah.
she had to be the responsible older sibling. So that created this like hunger for her own free time and her own development that she felt like she didn't get. And that materialized through this thirst for knowledge that she had. So she just created a mini her and she didn't realize it.
No, she probably did realize it. Seems almost intentional and very, very smart to get a kid to do the things that you want them to become without them feeling like you're pushing them in a direction. Yeah,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something that is unusual, and you are amongst a very small group of Black people who've had this experience, the punk scene.
Hmm.
And it's a subculture. It's
Yes.
far more diverse than just the music. It's clothes. It's all the things that we thought hip hop was, and I mean that in the sense that the politics.
Hmm.
Uh, there were always a few hip hop artists. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Public Enemy, certainly the Cool, my favorite group, Boots Riley, the Cool.
Yeah.
But for the most part, hip hop was quickly became a destructive force in our community. But the punk was, in fact, a politicized subculture. It was anti-consumerist, it was anti-corporate, and it was direct action. Do this shit right now.
Yup.
Make change.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you become a punk? And just darken us on punk politics.
Well, how I became a punk is nothing revolutionary. I fell in love with a gorgeous black man. That's how I became a punk. That's it. That is how I became a punk. That's really the truth.
Yeah,
Um,
after you became a punk.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was working. I probably wasn't even out of high school a year. Maybe, yeah, maybe a little over a year. I was working. I tried college, hated it, bored to tears, and I told my mama, okay, you can stop paying for this. You stop wasting your money because I ain't gonna keep doing this. This I'm bored. I'm not doing it. And she was like, okay, but you gonna, because I was still living with her. She's like, all right, but you're gonna get a job. I'm like, cool. So I did. I got a job, and I was working at a telemarketing firm, and one of my coworkers became a friend, and he was a punk. He was the roommate of the guitar player for a punk band called Beefeater here in Washington D.C. Beefeater, very influential punk band in this area. The guitar player, amazing black guitar player, man named Frederick E. Smith Jr., nickname Freak Smith, Fred Freak Smith. Incredible, incredible talent. Just one of those people who clearly have a gift,
Mm-hmm.
but life just would not let them be, so
Yeah.
that's a whole
Yeah.
nother.
Yeah.
But basically, my
Talented that he
coworker,
didn't have to develop it, thus he never became what he could be.
mm, so my coworker was a roommate to this guy, and he and I are good friends. And one night he just says, because I worked evenings. One night he just said, my roommate, I told him about you before. I'm like, yeah, I know about your roommate who plays guitar, whatever, man. Okay, whatever. And he's like, no, I'm saying, he's kind of lonely. I think you would like him. Do you want to meet him? And I didn't know anything about punk. Didn't know. I didn't. I was fresh out of high school. Go Go was becoming
Mhm.
huge. It was huge by this time, and just so this is late 80s. This is 85, 86. You know, um, and I'm somewhere in between Go Go and metal because I was a metalhead.
Okay.
Um, and so I didn't know anything about punk, really. Um, so I was just like, all right, I'll meet this guy. Yeah, fine. I'll go and whatever. So we go a couple nights later. We leave work. We go to WUST Music Hall, which thank God is not open any longer because I nobody ever understood how that building stayed up because that joint was it was wooden. It moved far too much. It was we could never figure out how it stayed standing. But it was the site of some incredible punk shows, but it was the place that I first met Fred Smith, and it was where I fell in love with him. I didn't fall in love with punk at that moment because I mean, I see him. We go to the show. Um, they play, and I'm like, hell is what is this? I'm listening to the music like this is awful. I don't know what they're saying. They're screaming and I don't know what is
Yeah.
happening.
And
And
jumping
so
around unrhythmically.
yeah, I'm trying to find the beat and there's no and I'm oh okay, I'm not sure if this is okay. But then, a couple of bands play and they're opening bands. Um, and then one of the opening, so then Fred's band plays and they are one of the opening bands, but they're the opening band before the main act. And that's important.
Yeah, yeah.
But so Beefeater plays, Fred plays, I see him, all the other bands before, I think there was like two or three bands before then, they were all white. So Fred is the first black person that I see. And my friend is, and his name was Toast. Toast is like, yeah, there's Fred. That's the guitar player. And I'm like, oh.
Okay, okay.
Oh yeah. So, he excellent, amazing player. But I was definitely intrigued. They do their set, they come off stage, he comes upstairs because we're on the balcony. He sees me. Clearly, he's into me. I'm into him. Toast introduces us. We see each other. Fred says to me, "Hey." And I say to him, "Hey." And that was it.
Okay, well now let's get to punk politics.
So the politics come in pretty much with the headlining band, because the band that headlined was Bad Brains. And
Oh,
that is important.
yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
because metal, all genres of rock music, all genres of metal after the arena era, after the era of the big arena rock
Mhm.
bands like Kansas, Boston, and REO Speedwagon, and yes, I listen to all of them. That's how I know them. And Heart and all of them. After that era was over, and then disco was kind of over, you have punk,
Yeah.
but then you have from punk to this thing called metal, right? And that's where bands like
The
Metallica,
metal, heavy metal.
that's where heavy metal comes in, kind of from punk, right? There's a split there. Every heavy metal band that exists, every single one of them, I don't care what the genre or subgenre of metal is, they all exist because of Bad Brains. Every punk band that exists after Bad Brains was formed basically exists because of Bad Brains. This is important because Bad Brains is a black punk band. They're not the first, but they are the first commercially successful black punk band. And they literally influenced, they almost created the heavy metal genre. They
Mm.
expanded the punk genre and they created the heavy metal genre and I say created in the
Do they
way that
precede Living Color?
Mhm.
Do they precede Living Color?
Yes, they do. Yep.
Wow.
Yes, they do. And I actually have seen Bad Brains and Living Color in the same venue. Yes, in the
Damn.
930 Club in Washington D.C. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So the political importance of Bad Brains was something that Fred explained to me because we were about to leave the joint and he's like, "No, no, no, we got to stay and check this band out because they are going to make waves." Now, this was when Band in DC first came out. Their first successful big studio album. And it was a tsunami. It was a seismic shift in the punk music scene, and like I said, in the rock scene. It was incredible. But the things they sang about were from a specific black working class kind of perspective. Because even though the punk scene was very, very political, like the
Mhm.
anti-Reagan, anti-capitalist sentiment,
Right.
that was a big deal here in DC, in the punk scene in DC. And a lot of punk bands were openly anti-racist way back then.
Yeah.
So anti-racism is not a new thing. All right. It's pretty, it's basically a part of the whole left ideology, regardless of where it shows up. But there were not a lot of black people in the punk scene to express those sentiments from the perspective of black people, because we know they hit differently, right?
That's
When it
right.
comes to us,
Yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
that these things aren't important for other oppressed people, they just hit differently.
Oh yeah.
When it comes to
Absolutely.
us, it hits differently for women, it hits differently. You know what I mean?
The only rock I could ever get into, to be honest with you, I never owned a Beatles album record, but Living Color
Yeah.
mattered to me.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're
For
damn right.
and living color is, for me, and this is just kind of how I think of things, like what's his name? Howling Wolf
Yeah. Well,
Robert Johnson,
yeah.
Big Mama Thornton. Um, oh shoot, I put a spell on you. What is his name?
Uh,
Oh, I can't remember his name right now.
Hoochie Coochie Man,
Yes.
Muddy Waters.
But then who's the guy who had they always confuse him. They always accuse him of being a voodoo priest. I can't remember his name right now. Somebody in the chat.
Oh, yeah, I know you're talking about. I can't
Yeah,
remember him. Yeah,
but
yeah,
but these are the people who I put in the thank you. So I knew
Screaming
somebody in
Jay
the chat was
Hawkins.
going to do a screaming Jay
Yeah,
Hawkins.
Jay
Thank you
Hawkins.
very
Yeah,
much.
yeah,
Thank you. These are the people in that I put Bad Brains in the line of succession of.
hmm
It's that group of people who create a new sound
yeah,
out of the music that we created. They took the music we created and they created this new sound that has a more raw,
yeah,
aggressive,
yeah,
confrontational, um, brutal kind of
yeah.
edge,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that spawns other Black artists who want to take that offshoot a little farther. That's where you get the Jimi Hendrixes.
yeah,
That's where you get, that's where you get the Death, which
yeah.
is the first Black punk band out of Detroit, right? That's where you get Death. Death leads to Bad Brains. And there are bands in between that, but Bad Brains leads directly to Living Color. Bad Brains also is connected to Nona Hendrix. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, yeah,
You understand? So
yeah,
so this
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
this is when you look at one artist like Bad Brains or Living Color or Jimi Hendrix, you're looking at an artist. But when you look at it from the lens, when you take a step back and you look at it from the lens of the history of Black music,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden Bad Brains becomes not just this phenomenon of punk music. Bad Brains is in this line of succession, this
Mhm.
this long and constant flow of Black musical expression being pushed by Black people, taking that same artistic lens that Black people have to transform our suffering into art and
Mhm.
high art, and
Yeah,
then taking that and pushing it in areas and in directions that people are not expecting,
yeah.
and then creating this new thing, and then that gets copied and
Yeah,
replicated, and
absolutely.
it inspires, and that's fantastic.
Appropriated.
Right, and appropriated. And the one thing that is a little bit different in the punk and metal music scene as opposed to pop music in general is that your average punk and metal artist will tell you that it is Black music that inspired them.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
whereas now I can't speak to the business practices, but I know
Yeah.
that there are not a whole lot of
Others
Elvis.
simply deny that they have stolen our stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
but there's
let
not
me
a whole
say
lot of Elvis type of bullshit in punk and metal. 'Cause you're not gonna have a whole lot of artists who are not going to tell you that Jimi Hendrix and Big Mama Thornton and Screaming Jay Hawkins and Bad Brains and Living Color, are their inspirations. They'll flat out tell you that's true,
yeah.
and they will tell you they would not be in the game were it not for those people.
And the early rockers would do that.
Mhm.
But as they became more and more successful, as someone
Mhm.
said, they became white, but they got here from Britain.
Right. So then I go
So,
from that. I go from just, falling
yeah,
in love
that's
with.
where I want to go. How do you move out of the
Yeah.
punk scene to be a black internationalist, pan-Africanist, socialist?
Well, that actually happened because of the punk scene, because when I began to see the political focus that existed, because the punk scene is not the
Yeah,
same
right.
today. The punk scene in I don't know what's going on in DC. Oh, I don't know what's happening. What did I do?
All of a sudden, Jared's logo has popped up.
I don't know what happened. Oops, that was me and my fingers That's me not being able to hold still. That's what that is. Um, but
I
I
appreciate the energy.
I I I fell into to the politics of the scene because
Mm,
it was impossible for you. You think you just go into a show. You just want to go to a show. I just wanted to go to a show. See Scream, another punk band that had black members. Um, Fugazi, which was Dave Grohl's band before Nirvana. Right? I just wanted to go to a show and see Dirty Rotten Imbeciles or, the Cro-Mags or Nuclear Assault or, whatever my favorite punk band was at the time. But a lot of shows, you had to do the political education first. You had to sit
explain
through
that.
the teach-in first.
Talk
Or
about
there was a
that. Talk
teach-in
about
right
that.
after.
There's a teach-in before the show.
Yes. Or there was a teach-in right after. Or they were passing out flyers for a community talk or a teach in at the same location later on that week. You couldn't be in the punk scene in DC and not be exposed to political analysis and discussion. It was impossible.
See, that was my point when I tried to say that the punk scene was what we wanted, and some of us thought hip hop was.
And I don't disagree that for a time hip hop
Yeah.
absolutely was that, because that the
For a very brief moment in the late 80s,
mhm,
before gangster rap comes in, but even then, you didn't have the teach-ins.
yes.
You didn't have that other politicized element. It was in the music, right? But there
Mhm.
wasn't a political culture
Yes.
around it,
Yes.
right? And ultimately, hip hop fell victim to the bullshit that was around it.
Yeah.
It wasn't political. Look, I, I got you here because of your international expertise,
Uh-huh.
and it's Women's History Month, and I want you to talk about the conditions of Black women. But we done went down, dare I say, a rabbit hole.
Well, because my whole life is a rabbit hole, bruh. I I have never been the type of person to like seek out interesting things. I'm not the type of person. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm an introvert because I'm not.
No.
I don't like being out in front as much as people think I do. I really do not. I like experiencing interesting things. Like I love learning stuff. I love that. And that's really just kind of what gets me going a lot of times. And that's why I love to travel the way I do, because I like seeing stuff that I can't see here. And I like learning. That's why I like learning new things. But I'm not I'm not the influencer type, I guess. so so it's not like I intentionally sought out experiences where I would
Mhm.
have these interesting, no, things just kind of happened. I mean, and I also, because I am a spiritual person, I also don't entirely believe that either.
Right.
Because I don't believe in coincidence. I think that if we are where we're supposed to be at a particular time, the universe shows us what we're supposed to see. If we're doing what we're supposed to do and we're where we're supposed to be, we see what we need to see and we learn what we need to learn, and we move with that. If we're not where we're supposed to be, then we miss it and we might get it somewhere else. That's kind of how I see things
I see it a
a lot
little
of times.
different in that I believe that if you prepare yourself, then in every situation you will find something valuable that you can use later, that there's never any reason to regret something, right? Unless you do
Yeah,
harm to people.
yeah.
Otherwise, everything you will find that you can make use of it in a positive way at some future point if you're fully engaged.
Mm.
But anyway, we might be headed toward another
I
damn
know that's another rabbit hole.
me and you. I don't know.
But
Hey, no,
but
people are not listening to it. They don't want to hear us do
I,
that.
but but I think this explains how I got to internationalism, to pan-africanism. It's because I stumbled upon the South African anti-apartheid struggle
Mm,
because I was involved in that as a punk because it was a part of the punk culture, right? So you had a group of punks who would go down to the South African embassy with drums, but my ex-boyfriend was among one of them,
mm,
and play drums and music and chant in front of the embassy, disrupting the business of the embassy to the point where they would call the police on us.
good.
And that is when I met Africans from the continent, from different countries. And that's when I understood, oh wait, we're talking about 50, you know, 50 some different countries and not just in Africa, right? And that's where I really began to understand there's something going on in places in the rest of the world that sound really familiar to
Mhm,
what I'm
mhm,
seeing in my neighborhood. How is that so? How is that true? So I would ask some of these people that I met, how is it that kids in South Africa, African kids in South Africa, are have to live under a curfew or be violently beaten by the police, and we got National Guard in our neighborhood
yeah.
running kids off the street under a curfew, threatening those kids with a how is the same thing happening? So that's how I kind of got an inkling, and it was just a little inkling that there is something connecting us,
Mhm.
the struggles of
But
poor
did you
people
see
here.
it? Well, you saw it as poor peoples, or you saw it as peoples of African descent?
I saw it
When did class
initially.
become major for you?
Yeah, the class part didn't come until later.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that I made the connection between, we're all descendants of Africa. I'm pretty sure I didn't make that connection then yet either. But I knew that they were black people and so were we. And how are they experiencing the same thing that we're
And they're
experiencing
on the other
here?
side of the world.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't know anything about imperialism, but I was learning through the punk scene because they were talking about, Reagan and his imperialism, what they're doing. I learned about the United Fruit Company as a
Ooh, them
punk.
son of a bitches, yeah.
Yeah, that I learned the history of the U.S. Of Operation Condor. That's where I first heard it.
Okay, okay. So
In a teach-in before a punk show.
at what point does this move from being experiential to being both experiential and study? When
and
do you
and and
start
study.
reading? Yeah, when do you start reading?
Oh,
What do
I
what do you
start.
read?
Yeah, I'm reading. I think probably the first book I bought about something that I learned at one of those teach-ins
Mhm.
was uh what was the it was about, oh gosh. It was about Congo, but it wasn't Leopold's Ghost.
Okay.
It wasn't that book, but it was, and it may not have been a
Was
book.
it
It may have just been like I've
Wars,
probably.
Germs, and Steel?
No, it wasn't that one. I can't remember because that book is long, long since gone. It was a kind of a small one, but I remember reading it and thinking, how did he get away with this? And I remember thinking that there were Nuremberg trials after World War II.
Right.
And I remember thinking there had to have been something like that.
After colonialism.
Right. After Leopold in particular in
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
Congo.
yeah.
And
That's
then kind of spending this period of time researching, looking, like I would literally go to the Library of Congress on Saturday because I love the Library of Congress with a list of stuff to look up. And that's what I would do. I would spend Saturdays hanging out in the Library of Congress, looking up books and reading and taking notes and looking up at the beautiful pictures on it because I love the art inside the building. But that's when I began reading for to understand politics. Even though I didn't understand what I was doing, I didn't understand that's what I was doing. I just learned something and I wanted to learn more about it. And then when I learned more about it, I wanted to, and I found out how horrible it was. Then I wanted to find out what this country did to make it right. And then I found out this country was the ones who did it, and they didn't do shit to make it right. They just made it worse.
as they continue to do. So
Yeah.
let's use this as a segue to get to what I think people want to hear. I want you to dive into the book on China before we go to Venezuela.
Mhm.
So you went as part of a group entitled Friends of Socialist China. How long were you there? And you wrote an article in the book. Can you describe what you learned about China? And I don't want to throw this up because the prevailing view, particularly in the circles I run in, is that China is state capitalist, that they moved from Mao to that. In my world, Deng Xiaoping should have stayed and should have been kept in prison. Mao shouldn't have let him out. So what did you learn in China that moves against that viewpoint that I just articulated?
China does not have what people want to call state capitalism, because the idea of capitalism is that capital controls the policy.
Mhm.
Capital does not control the policy in China. Capitalism doesn't control the policy. Capitalists do not control the policy. Are there capitalists in China? Are there a few billionaires? Yes, there are a handful of billionaires in China. They don't control shit. They control nothing as far as government policy is
They don't
concerned.
make policy.
They do not make
They
policy.
serve the policy put in place by the Communist Party, is what you're saying.
And if they try to get out of contributing their appropriate share of the profit to the country for the resources that go to serving the people, the Chinese government will take their shit.
So in China, what would be the appropriate share that these capitalists contribute? Is there an income tax? What would be the percentage?
I can't tell you the percentage. I don't know what the percentage is, and I don't even care. Because
Whatever they've defined as the appropriate share, they got to give it up.
that they must give it up. They and most, first of all, China doesn't, all of the corporations in China are not privately owned. There
Right.
are privately owned corporations, but we have to understand that China has a system in which the state owns enterprises that are critical to the development of China. So while there are private corporations in some of these industries, aerospace, telecommunications, energy, and what is it, mining, are all national, and obviously defense,
Okay, those
all
are nationalized.
nationalized industries. The government of China, the Communist Party of China, owns, and now I forget the term they use, but it's the pillars of industry that China owns industry in. So the resources that these industries produce go directly to the Chinese government. And the Chinese government takes those resources and distributes them throughout the provinces to complete their 5 year plans. The 5 year plans are derived from the contributions of the ministers in the country, throughout the country, at every level: major city, smaller city, prefecture. There's a level underneath that, village and town. There's a big old hierarchy of municipalities.
That's one of
Um,
the things I do really love about China, that you don't have accidents where someone like a Trump emerges. You've got to work your way up through the party structure. You start at the village and you
mhm,
move your ass up. You know,
mhm.
you can't be leaping over
No,
and get
no.
something crazy. But
And if you do not, if your current constituents, at whatever level you are, do not approve of the job you're doing, you're not moving up anywhere. You're gonna lose your job. and there's no running again. There's no, you ain't doing that. So when we look at, and this is something that I learned in China, I didn't know this until I went there. Xi Jinping, it took him 40 years
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get to that level.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, ain't no
Yeah.
favorites. There ain't nobody playing
No,
with it.
no, no. They don't
No,
put
no,
no whippersnappers.
no.
But
No, every general secretary of the CPC is going to be an old person.
yeah,
One day it's going to be an old woman, but yeah.
that's where the planet used to work. But but here's I guess I understand that socialism is really a mixed economy, right? But what makes you're always going to have some capitalists in a socialist society because you haven't completed the transition to communism. But what makes China more socialistic, more moving in the direction of communism than Sweden or the Western welfare states?
Um an economic program and communist principles that has already lifted 500, I'm sorry, 800 million people out of poverty already in less than 40 years from an almost uh bombed out, completely agrarian, feudal, quite honestly backward society,
Yeah, yeah,
repeatedly occupied by imperialist powers, the British, the French, and Japan. People don't
yeah, yeah,
know
yeah.
that
People,
Japan,
yeah,
oh my God. But
and maybe more brutally by Japan.
yes, yeah, because I didn't know.
Yeah, that was a hell of a
I
period.
didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. Like, I'm in the museum, like they did what?
Oh yeah, yeah. I took a year of Chinese history of Asian, China and Japan. They said Asia, but it was really just China and Japan.
Yeah.
So I took a year of it at some point. But so now here's the other criticism
Hmm.
of China.
Hmm.
And, I've been to Tanzania a few times, and Belt and Roads Initiative. There, many people describe it as a softer form of colonialism or neo-colonialism. And in Tanzania, they talk about settlers because the argument is that even though the agreement was that China would teach the local people the skills, they ended up sending over their specialists and their workers, and those workers then and they only send men, and those men then find an African woman that they marry, and then they get access to the land because they were not able to purchase land, but once they marry an African or Tanzanian woman, they can buy land. And so there's a talk that while Africa gets more out of it than they got under European colonialism, that it has those elements.
So this is something that I try to be careful with because I don't want to seem like I am dismissing incidents where individual Chinese people do shitty things
Right, right. But
in
that's different than a state
in
policy.
right. That is a different thing from a state policy and a government policy. So let me start by giving you an example of how China acts in cases where Chinese business people um, act a fool. So, if you remember a few years ago, here in this country, there was a baby formula shortage. And the baby formula shortage was because of contamination in one of the factories, a major factory that apparently produces all of the baby formula in this country that we didn't really even realize had been monopolized
Right,
until this thing happened, right?
right,
So, I don't remember that any babies died in this country from that, but I know that some children did get sick, right?
right, right.
And in this country, when it happened, nobody went to jail.
No.
Nobody, there was really no investigation. There were no hearings, there were no charges, no indictments, no nothing. Nobody went to jail. As far as we know, the CEO of whatever that company is still the CEO, and
Yeah.
nobody paid anything for babies getting sick and a baby formula shortage
Right.
happening in this country.
They weren't sued and no money was
Nope, none of
distributed.
that.
Yeah.
A few years before that happened here in the US, that happened in China, where some baby formula company decided they didn't want to pay the money for the inspections. They didn't want to pay the extra money, so they decided they weren't going to do it anymore. There was contamination. A couple of babies did die. The Chinese government stepped in very quickly and investigated, found that the company was at fault because the CEO made the decision to increase profits by not paying for the fines or the fees for the safety inspections. And do you know what the Chinese government, the Communist Party of China, did to him? They executed him. They
Good.
executed him, and they told the entire country, we are going to execute him because we want this to be a lesson to every other business owner in this country. If you endanger the future of our people, if you violate the regulations and the rules that protect the people, we are going to do away with you because you're a threat. Your greed has gotten in the way of the safety and protection of the people, and we ain't having that shit. And they just recently did it again in
Good.
the past few weeks with someone who he was a government minister who was caught in a bribery scheme. It wasn't even a lot of money, but the CPC was like, we don't care. We don't care how much money it was. You're going to jail for 10 years. They sent him to prison for 10, and this was not the only time. But then they also just sentenced somebody that they caught with child pornography to death.
See,
To death.
yeah, yeah,
So I give those examples to explain that this is how China deals with corruption, with bribery, with greed, right? That endangers people. So, if this is the way China has responded to those incidences, perhaps if there are incidences like this in countries where Chinese businessmen are taking advantage of the people, you need to tell the Chinese Communist Party to come get them Bamas because they will.
okay.
Because they will. So I encourage people, and I say that as the first response, right? Because I understand that a nation's sovereignty is a serious thing. And people should
Yeah,
be upset if there are entities from another country coming in saying that they're doing business to help the
yeah,
people
absolutely.
and those people hurt people. Yeah, you should be angry. I just want people to
Or if those people expropriate land and exploit labor.
right,
Yeah,
right. But in the case of particularly China, because they do have a track record of acting on abuse against people,
yeah.
I do encourage people who have those concerns about China in their countries, tell them, rat them people out. Don't just complain and accuse China of being neo-colonialist because some Chinese business people are exploiting you. Tell the Chinese government. And then, but then while you're telling the Chinese government, ask your government why you are not enforcing rules and laws and regulations
The
that are
treaty that you
supposed to be
made,
a
of
part of the
course.
agreement that these people are here for. Right. So I'm certainly not going to sit here and say that, the Chinese people would never expect. Look, people are people.
Yeah,
Okay. And people are people. And I'm certainly not an apologist for any government, just because that's just not what I do. Right? That's crazy. I'm not Chinese. I don't represent the government, so I'm not in a position to apologize for them, to be an apologist for them. But what I can tell you is that I do believe They back up a lot of their words with actions. When they say they are going to not tolerate a thing, it is not tolerated. And if it is brought to their attention that their values, Communist Party principles, basic human rights have been violated, they deal with it.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's my response. I do believe that the Belt and Road Initiative is a genuine effort by many in the Chinese government to do exactly what they're saying. Because I
Mhm.
don't think the Chinese people, from the policy and government perspective, they don't want antagonism and tension among people. I really do think they want to have mutually beneficial, peaceful relations because they want to make money and be prosperous just like everybody else. They're not doing this out of the kindness of their heart because they love human. No, no, no. They want to be prosperous and make money, but they want everybody else to be prosperous and make money too. And we can't all do that if we're all killing each other. So that's what my response would be to that, I think.
One of the things that makes me hopeful toward China is that Xi Jinping instituted maybe a decade ago
Mhm.
that they teach Marx throughout the schooling system, at every level of education,
Yeah.
that they went back to Marx.
Mhm.
And I was always a little, how you cannot reconcile Mao and Deng Xiaoping.
I mean, from what I've seen, because we did go to and I was in China, excuse me, for 10 days. We did 5 cities in 10 days. So it was 2 days per city. I was exhausted by day three because you get up really on these delegations. You get up early, you have breakfast, you're out in and off of a bus, on and off a bus,
Hey,
in and out of museum, in and out of this site, in and out of that site, all day long. You have a nice lunch somewhere in the middle, but then you're in and out, in and out, in and out on the bus, on the road until 6, 7 o'clock, and then you have dinner and then you go pass out. you know well, I go pass out. A lot of people like to go drink and do it. Nope, these knees are like, ma'am, go to bed. You've done enough.
yeah, yeah,
So you're in a country that you only know about from books and movies,
right.
and the politics of this country, and I'm expecting some type of version of that. And what I see and experience is so far beyond what anybody could. We don't. I don't care what people call China's economic system. People think it's state capitalism. Fine, you can think it's state capitalism. That's fantastic. That's what you think. If you don't, if you think it's straight capitalism, fantastic. It's straight capitalism. All right, fine. If you think they are betraying socialism, okay, fine. They're betraying socialism. All right. I do know that every single Chinese person has a home. Period. There is no homelessness in China. So whatever you want to call the system, that system has created a housing system that
Yeah.
continues to grow and continues to guarantee quality housing for every single citizen in China, and not just citizens either. Because if you're not Chinese, you actually can rent an apartment and live in China for an incredibly small amount of money. And the apartment is entirely furnished. You can get an entirely furnished new apartment in China that is very nice, that has a balcony and beautiful views and wood floors and all of the amenities for less than 500 a month. A lot less, like two or three, and live very well, right? Whatever people want to call the system in China, whatever however they want to characterize it, the Chinese people love their system. They love their government. They
I think,
love their leaders, and those people love their country. Do you hear me? I I don't think I've seen anything like it.
and I think one of the things I would tend to agree with that China's system for its people is probably the best that we have operating on the world. But what people tend to forget is that the U.S. is the most predatory capitalist society So Canada is better. Germany is better. These are the most rabid,
Uh-huh.
racist, capitalist, imperialist that's ever been on the planet. But look, you're back from Venezuela. What did you see? What's going on? Talk to us and catch us up.
First, I want to
I gotta let these
oh,
dogs.
oh, please, I understand. Trust me. I'm surprised this one over here ain't running his mouth. But as soon as there's a loud noise outside, he'll pipe up again. Um, yeah, the first thing I want to say about Venezuela, um, while I'm because the weather here is like it was 85 degrees yesterday. Today, now it's like 40 degrees. It snowed earlier today, and now I'm hot. So um what I would say about Venezuela, I would like to say to leftists today, right now, stop reacting to every ridiculous thing you're seeing being said about Venezuela in US corporate media.
Yeah.
Stop believing these people telling you that Delcy Rodriguez is betraying the revolution, that she's betraying Maduro, that she's really, really secretly working with the stop it. They're lying. The empire is doing what the empire does.
Mm-hmm.
They are manufacturing this narrative of a Bolivarian revolution that is collapsing. That they are trying to delegitimize the fact that the Bolivarian government still stands. The US went in, kidnapped Maduro and Celia in an attempt to foment a coup, only to have to replace them with the vice president of the damn Bolivarian government. Why are you agreeing with these people? You agreeing with the people who kidnapped the damn president about what's going on in the country that they just kidnapped the president from? What the hell is wrong with y'all? Y'all gonna agree with the people who just kidnapped the man, and they're gonna come back and talk about, yeah, the Venezuelan government is now selling oil to Israel, when the same government just stole the oil tanker from Venezuela. What is wrong with y'all? Stop
Yeah.
responding to that shit. It's lies. And here's the thing. Here's the really important thing. Even if it's true, even if it's true, we need to understand that the Venezuelan government is negotiating with terrorists.
Yeah.
They are negotiating with a gun to their head.
Yeah.
Delcy Rodriguez is literally in the same room with the people who have drawn up an indictment against her to use it just like they did to Maduro and Celia in case she steps too far out of line. And here she is trying to get Maduro and Celia back while also trying to keep the US from carrying out the second wave attack that they didn't carry out on January 3rd that the people were responding to, while trying to maintain the Bolivarian government and trying to get the United States to back off some of the sanctions so the Venezuelan people can live. That's the situation in the Venezuelan government with these so-called negotiations with the US. Stop responding to those news reports coming out of the State Department and the White House talking about how Delcy Rodriguez is playing ball with Trump. Lies. They are not true. And even if she is appearing to play ball with Trump, you need to understand who they're dealing with.
Yeah.
I don't understand how all of a sudden, how we this scary, y'all? How we call ourselves revolutionaries and we this scary? The
Yeah.
empire says these people are doing a thing, and all of a sudden we believe them. We believe the empire.
Right. They lie on us all the time. And now we're gonna believe them about somebody else.
I don't understand. I don't understand these people. I really, I'm very confused by these people right now, Dr. Sundiata. But I also want to tell people that regardless of how you feel about the news being reported to you about Venezuela, and that admonition about not believing and responding to everything that comes out of this administration and this government about Venezuela, the same is true about Iran. Those women in Iran and their headscarves ain't your damn business. That's not your business, and that's not why they're being bombed. So please stop with the Iran is an authoritarian regime and they arrested and killed 30,000 of them. No, they didn't. No, they did not.
Come on.
That
Yeah.
was an attempted color revolution that Mossad and the US were behind. And you know that's true.
Yeah.
But the other thing about Venezuela is I saw a level of discipline on a level that I don't think I've ever seen before in my life.
Hmm.
This
Tell
is
me
a
more.
level of organization that, ooh, my God. So you remember the videos of all the people signing up to join the militia in Venezuela a
Yeah.
few weeks before the invasion and kidnapping
Right.
happened. You know, people from all walks of life, young, old, Afro-Venezuelan, Indigeno Venezuelan, Spanish descended folk.
Let me roll you back.
Hmm.
Venezuela is a majority black country, right?
Venezuela, black as fuck, just like
Yeah.
Cuba, just
Yeah.
like Nicaragua.
But even blacker than Cuba and Nicaragua. I mean, the
Hmm.
majority of the people are
Hmm.
clearly of African descent. You
Yes.
never see that on U.S.
Mm-mm.
television.
Mm-mm.
And that's
Nope.
what we're talking about.
Yes.
And it appears that where the Bolivarian Revolution has sunk its deepest roots is in the darker parts of the country.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes, that is absolutely true. And the people of the country were ready. When they woke up on the morning of January 3rd, when the sun broke on January 3rd and the news started broadcasting what had happened, the people of Venezuela who had signed up for the militia and they had their guns that were issued to them by the government, they were ready. They were ready. Everybody got their gun, but they got the word to stand down first. Why did they get the word to stand down? Because the US had already left. They had kidnapped Maduro and Celia in the middle of the night. They did it through helicopters and a SEAL team rappelling
Mhm.
down from a helicopter.
The
Yeah.
Air Force, no, it
And
wasn't
if you
Air
mhm,
Force.
right.
Yeah.
So by the time people woke up and heard the news, the US was out. US was gone. And Maduro was, on a aircraft carrier somewhere on the way back to the US to New York. So that was one reason the government told the people to stand down. The second reason was because even though they did not know if there was going to be a second attack, because there was still a US warship off the coast. So they're expecting another attack.
Mhm.
But they looked at the damage from that night, and they quickly did an assessment of what happened and how it happened. And they realized that the US used advanced weapons that they had never seen before.
Yeah, I heard there's
It
some sound weapon, right?
so yeah, that is it's two
The very
things.
sound weapon probably that they've been accusing the Cubans
That's
of
it.
having
Yes.
and using against them. So
Yes,
they right.
that's it.
Yeah.
So in Venezuela, one of the weapons that these folks had never seen before, they described the weapon that the US alleged Cuba had that they, called that they attributed to Havana syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, this weapon is real, but it's not a Cuban weapon. It's a United States weapon because they used it in Venezuela.
Yeah. That-
Also, the other weapon, and this one, I think we all cried when they told us that they think they use this weapon. The past few weeks or the last couple of months, there have been reports out of Gaza of some new type of bomb that they use that
yeah,
vaporizes.
yeah, yeah.
They
I
use
did
that
read of it.
in Venezuela. They used it in Venezuela because there are some members of the security team whose bodies they never discovered, but or never recovered, but all they saw was a pink mist. The same thing that was described in Gaza. So this is what the United States government did in Venezuela to kidnap Maduro and first combatant Celia Flores. And they call her first combatant because she is not just Maduro's wife,
Right.
y'all. She was Hugo Chavez's lawyer, and she was the former president of the National Assembly. So please put some respect on Celia Flores's name and don't just call that woman that man's wife. It's wonderful that she's his wife. That's fantastic because I would marry him. But come on now. She's a badass in her own right. and give her props. Um, so the government realized that if they fought a second wave attack from the U.S., they would lose, and a lot of people would die. So they told the people to stand down to save people's lives. And here's where the discipline comes in that blew my mind. As angry as the people were in the streets
Yeah,
the
I saw
morning of
that
January 3rd.
video of millions,
Yes. Yeah.
millions.
Yeah. And some of those people were in the streets with their weapons,
Yeah,
right? The government tells them, stand down. We can't win this battle. We are not going to sacrifice our people right now. Let's stand down. And as organizers, we know this is something called a strategic retreat, where
yeah,
you decide, all right, I'm gonna retreat right now so I can live another day, so I can regroup and find a way to kick your ass and win. So that's what they did. But here's the thing: everybody in the damn country actually did stand down.
yeah.
Everybody,
Yeah,
everybody who stood, everybody.
that's a
That
hell
is a
of an
level of
organization.
discipline. I and I even ask people, like, are you really you just, so when you just heard, okay, no, put your weapons away, and you just do it, and they explain, they're like, listen, this is war. We've always been at war. This is a long protracted war. When we understood the material conditions that we were literally outgunned, yeah, we got to live to fight another day. We can live to fight another day. And people, regular folks, told me, we have survived imperialism this long, we'll survive a little bit longer, we'll be all right. So these people are, I would really just continue to support the Venezuelan people. Again, I would stop responding to all of these reports about capitulation by the Venezuelan government. I would continue to support Maduro and Celia. Write to them if you're in the New York, New Jersey area. If you can get to a demonstration and be out there and support them and let them hear you out there, that would be fantastic. But don't give any of the empire's narrative any air.
Good.
Save all of your energy and focus and attention for solidarity with the people of Venezuela still fighting for their revolution.
So Jackie, I do, I really appreciate that. We're a bit over time, but
Yeah,
I
time is
want
a
to
colonial construct. I'm just
want
kidding.
to say something, and then I want you to wrap it up. But can I get a commitment from you to come back soon? Because as you know, we didn't get through half of what we was supposed to be talking about.
I know, of course. Of course I would. Of course.
So I've got a student who's in the National Guard. I got a tip today saying that he's got to drop out of school because he's being deployed to Cuba. So these some bitches is moving on Cuba soon.
Hmm. Yeah.
So talk again about what we need to do to put some pressure on these fools to back up.
If you have family in the military, do everything you can to tell them to get the fuck out right now. I mean, whatever it takes, whatever they're going to lose, whatever. I understand benefits and they're important because we all got to eat, we all got to survive. I get it. But this is literal. This is literally life and death for millions of people, and I don't care why people signed up to join the military. You don't want to be a part of this.
Not
if
this.
if you if you are not, gung ho for empire, if you're just doing this for some benefits that you can't get anywhere else, I promise you, what they are about to make you do to get those benefits is going to fuck you up much worse than not having the benefits. I promise you that. Get out now, if at any and all cost. For the rest of us, For the rest of us who are not, for those of us who are already involved in organizing, we're already demonstrating, we're already doing teach-ins, we're already sharing stuff online and talking to our family and friends. And I just did a Lenten a service talk for my church. And then I talked about the shit that's going on in Iran.
Mhm.
There are those of us who are doing this that I'm not talking to you because you're doing enough. You're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Everybody else, who all you're doing is wondering when they're going to stop this, wondering what's going to happen next. You're just all you're doing is posting things online and you're sharing that. That's all you're doing. You're not doing enough. You need to connect with an anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist, preferably international solidarity pan-Africanist organization
Mhm.
and grow and expand the work that they are doing. We need bodies in the streets. We need feet on the streets. We need people talking to people about these issues. Are we going to change the mind of the government? No, we're not going to change the mind of the government, but we are. If we organize the way we should be organizing, we will get more people involved in this fight. And we have to. That is the only way we are going to win because the reason these people are doing what they're doing now is because they've seen that most of the people in this country don't care and they're not going to do anything.
And the empire is being strangled. They
Yeah,
know that this is their last, it's fucking 11:55 and midnight is a new day. They
right,
know that. It's the first minute of a
right,
new.
hmm right. So the thing that we need to do the most is the thing that we don't want to do. And they know that. They know that we don't want, they know that most of the people in this country don't want to organize with folks like us because they have sown, the ruling class has sown enough division among the left in this country that we are so fractured that we don't have the power that we used to have because we're at each other. We're doing things like, agreeing with the empire about what these other countries are doing. This is why, when the US coups Al Assad and then puts in an ISIS link and, and the
And
left,
people don't say, what the?
right, and the left agrees with it because they hate Assad, because they believe what the empire said about
Yeah,
what Assad did. Well, what is the empire? What else are they going to do but be like, well, we got him. We have captured the left.
yeah,
So of course that they know that the left is fractured because they fractured it. They knew how to fracture it, and y'all helped them do it.
yeah,
So now we really have to push the empire out of left circles. All this imperialist agreeing with the imperialist narrative, that shit's got to go. And if we have people in our midst who are still on that, they have to go.
yeah,
We have no time to entertain these imperialist narratives and this soft imperialism from so-called leftists. We don't have time to entertain people who have problems with, the precise structure of a particular country's alleged revolutionary. Do the people have homes? Can everybody afford food? Are they blowing other people up? No, then they're fine. Leave them alone.
right. Is there,
We don't have
are
time.
the people revolting and attempting to depose this regime?
Right.
And we don't see the hands of the CIA and Mossad.
And especially since our job is to stop this government from violating the sovereignty, the human rights, the human dignity, and just the lives of people in other countries. That's our job. We need to do our job and deal with this government and not just this administration, but the entire system.
Right.
Because again, this man could not do everything that he is doing if the infrastructure and the precedent to do it wasn't already there.
That's right.
He if he wanted to attack Iran, he would have had to have started with some sanctions. Unless The sanctions were already imposed on Iran by every other administration before him. If he wanted to attack Venezuela, he would have had to have started with a declaration against Venezuela, but Obama already did. Obama already declared Venezuela a specific and unique threat to the
Right.
United States. So
Yeah.
Trump didn't have to do that. That step was already taken care of for him.
I do want to say this though, Jackie. There is something you know, like there is a saying going around in our community, and it's we've been here before and we survived it. But no, we haven't been here before.
No.
Because historically, you can't step in the same river twice because it ain't the same damn river and you ain't the same damn person, right? History does matter. And so, in this sense, Trump is creating desires to end what we thought was the worst thing imaginable, right? Financialized global capital. Trump is attempting to end that because there's a rules-based order that they put in Benton Woods coming out of World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's how you get to United Nations, the International Court at The Hague. You get a whole set of international rules.
Mm-hmm.
Trump and the fascists, these are fascists. They don't want to play by any set of rules. So they're attempting to implode the rules order. They're attempting to implode the dominance of financialized capital and replace it with tech and that bullshit. And these tech people are even more predatory than the fucking bankers.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to just Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, criminals on a world scale, on an order that the planet has never seen before. So Trump is trying to bring in something that is different. The elimination and the destruction of white bourgeois democracy is something that no previous, even Reagan didn't attempt to go that far. These folks want to roll us truly back to the 1890s when you got naked imperialism, the days of, as you talking about, the damn King of Belgium. That's where they want to go back to. So I do think it's new what they're attempting to do. They haven't completely created a new system, but they are trying to destroy enough of the old rule-based order, enough of the quote-unquote norms of U.S. democracy, and you know that's in big quotes.
Because
right. But Trump and them do pose something different and more dangerous. At least that's my view.
I mean, yeah, in that regard, it's more dangerous in that it is an end of this current thing.
Yeah.
And the end of this current thing has always been that, right? Because we've been able to look at history and see that's where fascism goes.
That's right.
But for me, the rules-based order is bullshit. The rules-based order was bullshit because, you know, if you've got a president who's supposed to be, you know, the best example of the success of liberal bourgeois democracy, Barack Obama, and there's supposed to be a rules-based order, but he drone bombs every fucking body every damn day for both his administration with no authorization from Congress, with no declaration of war, right? All of these things that this man is supposed
they set
to
precedent that he can take and go too far. But I'm thinking
this is what I'm saying. You know, I'm not saying that what Trump is doing now is not a level of danger that we have seen before. No, this particular situation where they're bombing Iran, just the bombing Iran all by itself.
Right.
No former president would have done that because they did have people in these administrations who were like, now, wait a minute. You don't think you don't know what you think you know about Iran. We don't entirely know all about Iran. So we're
And there
gonna
was a
leave
great
Iran
respect
alone.
for petty bourgeois democracy.
Right.
This is where the Chinese come in again, right? Their
Mm-hmm.
understanding of crisis is two characters.
Mm-hmm.
One character symbolizes the danger that we know this moment poses, but
Mm-hmm.
the other character symbolizes opportunity, because the reality is we want the destruction of the rules-based order
Mm-hmm.
because it was tyrannical for us.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm-hmm.
imperialist. It was
Mm-hmm.
racist, right? It was sexist, all those things. And so its destruction creates an opportunity not to save democracy.
No.
We want to save that shit.
Mm-hmm.
We want to create something new. We want
That's
to transform it,
that's
right?
right.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the opportunity that we have. But the danger is that if we don't seize it, they will create literally a more hellish experience than what we've already experienced.
That
Yeah.
that is exactly right. And that is where my concern is. Yes, this moment is frightening because I would not have thought that anybody would have bombed Iran. But I guess if anybody would be stupid enough to do it, it'd be this guy.
It would be this
It
guy.
would be this guy who's not going to listen to anybody, because listen, capitalists don't want to blow up the world, because if they blow up the world, how they going to keep making money?
Right.
So this idea that people have that capitalists will nuke us all, no, they don't really want to nuke us
No,
all.
they're unleashing pandemics on us.
Right,
They
because
intend to
some
do
of us are
that.
going to
Oh,
survive.
for sure. Yeah,
They're not going to wipe
they
out humanity in one fell
want to
swoop.
reduce the pop. They're Malthusians.
Right, right.
They
No,
want to
they
reduce
need
the
some
world
humanity left.
population, but they got to have people to make go them. They can't live. No matter what Peter Thiel thinks, he wants to be transhuman. No, you can't
No.
run this shit off robots.
No,
Y'all
they're
need
gonna find
human
out that
beings.
they ain't gonna live forever too. They're gonna find out that technology is not gonna work, that
Right.
they're eventually gonna leave this earth too. But while they're still here, they're gonna want somebody to cook their food, clean their house, take care of their kids,
Thank you.
wipe their behinds, and they are not gonna want a robot to do it.
That's right.
Okay? They're not gonna want a robot to do those jobs. So no, they don't want to nuke the entire planet and wipe out humanity. No.
No, they
Well,
do
but
not.
but what this man is unique because he is a megalomaniac. He is a
Yes.
narcissistic megalomaniac who
Yes.
will not listen to anybody. For him, this is he's lining his pockets.
Oh
He's
yes.
making as much money as he possibly can. That is all this man cares about.
Yeah.
He is taking as much
Literally,
money
this
as he
fool
can.
is 2 steps from death, and he's
Yeah.
trying to make more money.
Yeah. No, the people around him, the people you named, the Teals, the Musks, the Kushners, what's his name? Bannons and
Bannon and Lutnick and
yeah,
yeah, them.
these are the ones. These are the ones that we need to pay attention to.
That's right.
Trump is gonna go somewhere at some point. But these people, what y'all gonna do about them?
Yeah.
What are y'all gonna do about them? Because they already have a plan
That's
for
right.
when this empire finally collapses. Because
Yeah.
I do believe this situation in Iran does signal the end of U.S. influence in that region.
Oh yeah, the American century is fucking over.
It's done.
It's over, and that's
Uh-uh.
why they're so vicious.
Mhm.
This is the animal in the corner.
Yes, absolutely. And everybody's gonna get scratched up real bad.
Yeah.
With everybody. They just but eventually they're gonna get tired and die.
Oh, they gonna die.
It may not happen
Let me
that
be honest, they're not gonna die. We're gonna kill them.
and then they're gonna get tired, and
Humanity's
when
gonna
they're
kill 'em.
down and tired, we need to stick the knife in
That's
to
right.
make sure. And we
Yeah.
need to make sure. Don't do like the
No. They're
movies do.
vampires. You put the stake in the heart, but don't forget you got to cut your head off.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Don't do like the horror movies.
No.
And you hit the killer on the head one time and you
Yeah.
and then you turn around and of course he gets up. No, you make sure.
No, you gotta make sure.
Cut the head off,
Don't
put
drop your weapon.
gasoline on it, set it on fire. Chuck
Right,
up
keep
the
your weapon
ashes,
just in case.
put them in a wood chipper. You know,
All
whatever
right,
you got to do. But
Jackie.
but those people that are surrounding Trump that Sundiata just mentioned, those are the people who already have a plan for what they are going to build
Yeah,
on the other side of that.
that's right.
What are y'all going to do? When y'all going to organize and get a plan
That's
to
right.
build something on the other side of this for us? And in that plan, we have to include what we going to do with them. I know you don't
Yes,
want to think about it,
absolutely.
but you
And this
better.
ain't gonna be the Civil War where them motherfuckers get to come back.
Ain't no more
Power.
reconciliation.
No, no,
Mm-mm,
no, 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 no,
mm-mm.
no, no.
I'm not that kind
Back
of
to
Christian. I'm
China.
sorry.
Back to China. What did the Chinese do when they catch them?
I am not that kind of Christian. No, sir. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not that,
No.
and I'm good with that. When I get in front of my maker, if that actually is what happens, because I don't know. I mean, when I get in front of my maker, you know what? I did. I did say that they need to be dealt with. I did. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna end this with these words. I can't forget and I won't forgive. Period.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So no. All right, sister. I didn't. I went through Jackie looking for questions, and all we got is statements, and I done kept you for almost 2 hours. So, but you got to come back. You coming back in the next couple of months, okay?
I will come back anytime you ask. Anytime you ask.
I so appreciate you. All right,
I
well, let
appreciate
me.
you.
I'm gonna take you out, and then I'm gonna take me out and play our. Yeah.